Hi, my name is Stuart Reid and I'm a children's author of the Gorgeous George series of books. Gorgeous George and the Giant Geriatric Generator and the Zigzag Zip Face Zombies. Today, for a bit of a change, I thought I'd read from my forthcoming book called Gorgeous George and the Unidentified Unsinkable Underpants. I've never really read it before, it's not even in print yet, it comes out in the shops about October time, so I'm reading it off some A4 bits of paper, but I hope you'll enjoy it. Picture the scene. George, Kenny, Alison and Grandpa Jock are sitting round a campfire somewhere near Loch Ness. Alison got the fire started whilst Grandpa Jock began preparing another one of his specialities. George and Kenny were suspiciously quiet and were frequently seen holding clandestine conversations behind the tents. The two boys were even late for dinner, boiling their stalks of asparagus in a separate pan for another 5 minutes before they joined the other two. "I didn't know you liked asparagus, George," asked Alison carefully. "Love it," said George, munching into another stalk. "Did I see you adding grass into the pot?" No, you must have been mistaken, Alison." "There's quite a pile there, lad," said Grandpa Jock, nodding at about 50 or 60 stalks of asparagus sitting on the floor. Yeah, I thought we'd use them up," said Kenny as innocently as possible, munching into another one of the long green shoots of vegetable. The rest of the evening was spent by the campfire talking pants and discussing the events of the last couple of days. Grandpa Jock even thought that the men from the Guinness Book of Records should have been told about his first pair of inflatable underpants, but Alison convinced him they didn't do an underwear section. And by 10 o'clock the next morning, George, Alison and Kenny were back on the train, southbound this time, on their way home. They were sharing a table of 4, and Grandpa Jock was perched awkwardly at the edge of his seat. "Are you sitting comfortably, Grandpa?" "Oh, no," cried Grandpa Jock, "and you know fine well why not. My overinflated underpants were stretched beyond capacity and I'll have to buy another pair of whoopee cushions when we get home. My bum's killing me." "Well, at least the lakes in England are filling back up again," said Alison, changing the subject. George and Kenny were too busy whispering and giggling to pay attention. No, you go first. No, you go. I'll get the jar. You check first." And with that, Kenny jumped up and ran down the centre aisle of the train towards the toilets. The doors shut behind him. He's bursting," said George as casually as possible. Grandpa Jock raised one eyebrow suspiciously. "I haven't seen you go to the toilet this morning either, young man." "I'll go in a minute, Grandpa." Alison eyed George a little warily. He kept crossing his legs and fidgeting about in the seat, hiding something underneath his jumper. Alison suspected that there was something going on, but before she could start inquiries, Kenny was back from the toilet. "Well?" asked George. Kenny laughed. "It's true! It really works!" "No way!" gasped George. "Right, I'm checking mine." And with that, he sprinted off down the aisle. 2 minutes later, he was back again, looking very smug. "Well?" asked Kenny with a grin. "Ta-da!" said George, holding up a glass jar. It was filled with lime green, almost luminous liquid. Kenny laughed. Grandpa Jock and Alison sat back with disgusted grimaces on their faces. "What's that?" they said together. "It's true," confirmed George proudly. "Eating asparagus really does turn your wee green." "Ah, that's your wee!" squealed Alison. "You peed in a pot?" choked Grandpa Jock, almost laughing. "Yeah, and it really stinks too. Do you want a sniff?" "No!" cried Alison. "Get rid of it, George. Science is finished for the day," said Grandpa Jock, trying to act a little bit more suspiciously, but he was secretly impressed with the boy's experiment. When George returned from the toilet holding his empty glass jar, Kenny was still laughing. "Reminds me of the Irish recipe from the porridge making competition yesterday. Pea green porridge, wasn't it?" "My wee wasn't thick and lumpy, Grandpa." "No, but it was green, boy." And have I told you my favourite joke?" "What's that, Grandpa?" "Well, you two have to say pea green soup after everything I say, okay?" "Got it," replied Kenny. George just smiled. He'd heard this one before. Grandpa Jock started off. "What did you have for your breakfast yesterday?" "Pea green soup," said George and Kenny together. "You too, Alison," urged Grandpa Jock, and Alison's lips began to crack into a smile. "What did you have for your lunch yesterday?" "Pea green soup," they all said in unison. They were all smiling now. "What did you have for your dinner last night?" "Pea green soup." came the familiar reply. Grandpa Jock grinned wildly. And what will you do when you go to the toilet? Pea green soup! The end of that chapter. Thank you very much for listening. Go on, eat asparagus. Sorry, I was choking out.